Late replies can feel louder than words. A message sent, the screen checked again and again, minutes stretching into hours, and suddenly the silence starts to speak. The psychology behind late replies is not just about phones or habits. It is about perception, attachment, power, anxiety, priorities, and the stories our minds create when information is missing. In a hyperconnected world where instant responses are technically possible, delay carries meaning, whether intended or not. At its core, late replying triggers uncertainty. Human brains dislike uncertainty more than bad news. When someone replies late, the mind rushes to fill the gap. Are they ignoring me? Did I say something wrong? This mental gap filling is a survival mechanism. Our ancestors depended on quick social feedback to stay safe within groups. Silence could mean rejection, danger, or loss of connection. That same ancient wiring now reacts to a modern notification delay. One major factor is attachment style. People with secure attachment usually interpret late replies neutrally. They assume the other person is busy and do not personalize the delay. Their sense of self is not threatened by temporary unavailability. In contrast, people with anxious attachment often experience late replies as emotional alarms. The delay activates fear of abandonment, rejection, or being unimportant. The phone becomes a test of worth. Avoidantly attached individuals, on the other hand, may intentionally reply late to maintain distance, independence, or emotional control, sometimes without fully realizing why they do it. Late replies are also deeply connected to perceived priority. Time is a limited resource, so how quickly someone responds is often interpreted as how important the sender is. Even when this interpretation is inaccurate, it feels real. If someone consistently replies late, the brain may label it as low priority, which can hurt self. This is why late replies sting more in romantic or emotionally charged conversations than in casual or professional ones. Emotional investment amplifies sensitivity. Another psychological layer is power dynamics. Delayed responses can unconsciously shift control. The person who replies late controls the pace of interaction. In some cases, this is not manipulation, but simply personality or workload. In other cases, especially in dating or conflicted relationships, late replies can be used to assert dominance, avoid vulnerability, or keep the other person emotionally engaged, but uncertain. The unpredictability creates anticipation, and anticipation can strengthen emotional attachment, even when it causes stress. Cognitive biases play a huge role. The negativity bias makes people focus more on the possible negative reasons for a late reply than neutral or positive ones. Confirmation bias then reinforces existing fears. If someone already worries they are not valued, a late reply becomes proof. The mind selectively gathers evidence to support that belief, ignoring logical explanations like meetings, sleep, stress, or digital fatigue. Late replies also intersect with sex. For many people, especially in formative years, responsiveness becomes tied to validation. A fast reply feels like acceptance. A slow one feels like dismissal. This can create a feedback loop where mood, confidence, and even productivity depend on other people's response times. Over time, this external validation dependency can increase anxiety and reduce emotional resilience. From the other side, the psychology of the late replier is equally complex. Some people reply late because of cognitive overload. Constant notifications fragment attention, and replying requires emotional and mental energy. Others experience decision paralysis, especially if the message is emotionally loaded. They may want to respond perfectly, so they delay. Some people associate messaging with obligation or pressure, triggering avoidance. Late replies are not always about disinterest. Sometimes they're about overwhelm. Personality traits matter too. Introverts may take longer to respond because social interaction, even digital, drains energy. Highly conscientious people may delay until they can give a thoughtful reply. Conversely, impulsive personalities may reply instantly without much thought. Cultural background also influences expectations. In some cultures or social groups, delayed responses are normal and not emotionally charged, while in others, speed equals respect. Technology has distorted natural communication rhythms. Read receipts, online status, and last seen indicators remove ambiguity but increase anxiety. Knowing someone has seen a message but not replied intensifies emotional reactions. The brain interprets this as active ignoring, even though the person may be thinking, multitasking, or emotionally unavailable at that moment. The constant visibility creates an illusion that everyone should always be reachable, which is psychologically unrealistic. Late replies can also activate rumination. The mind replays the sent message, analyzes wording, tone, emojis, and punctuation. This overanalysis is a coping attempt to regain control. Unfortunately, rumination increases stress and reduces clarity. Instead of waiting peacefully, the mind spirals, creating narratives that feel real but are often inaccurate. There is also a distinction between occasional and patterned late replies. Occasional delays are usually consistent delays form a pattern, and the brain is excellent at pattern detection. When a pattern emerges, people begin to predict behavior and adjust emotionally. Some may detach to protect themselves. Others may cling harder, hoping to regain closeness. Both responses are attempts to manage emotional risk. Late replies in conflict situations carry even more weight. Silence during disagreement is often interpreted as withdrawal or punishment. This is known as stonewalling when done intentionally. The lack of response denies resolution and can escalate emotional distress. Even unintentional silence during conflict can deepen wounds because it blocks reassurance and repair. Interestingly, anticipation itself can be addictive. Dopamine is released not only when a reward arrives, but when it is expected. The uncertainty of late replies can heighten anticipation, making the eventual reply feel more intense. This mechanism explains why inconsistent communication can create strong emotional bonds, even unhealthy ones. The brain starts chasing relief from anxiety, mistaking it for connection. The psychological impact of late replies is also influenced by context. A late reply from a close friend feels different from a late reply from someone you admire or fear losing. Emotional stakes define emotional reaction. The more you value the connection, the more meaning silence carries. Over time, repeated exposure to late replies without clarification can erode trust. Trust relies on predictability and responsiveness. When communication feels unreliable, the nervous system stays slightly activated, waiting. This chronic low-level stress can affect mood, focus, and self-image. However, it is important to recognize that not every late reply is a message. Many are simply the result of modern life's overload. The brain, especially under stress, defaults to self-centered interpretations, but awareness can soften this response. Understanding the psychology behind late replies helps separate facts from feelings. Healthy communication requires recalibrating expectations. Not everyone experiences time, urgency, or availability the same way. Emotional maturity involves tolerating uncertainty without self-blame. It also involves expressing needs clearly rather than silently suffering. When expectations remain unspoken, the mind fills the gap with assumptions. Ultimately, late replies reveal more about our inner world than the other person's intentions. They expose attachment wounds, need for validation, fear of rejection, and desire for connection. By observing emotional reactions instead of being consumed by them, people can transform late replies from sources of anxiety into mirrors of silence. In a world where silence feels personal, learning to pause, breathe, and question the story we are telling ourselves is powerful. A delayed message does not define worth, importance, or lovability. It is simply a moment in time, and meaning is something the mind adds, not something that automatically exists.